Well, hello everybody, and happy snow day. Some of you are probably still in bed, sleeping in because you stayed up late last night. Others of you may be hard at work. I don't know, but whatever it is, happy snow day. Hope you're using it well. The reading for today comes from Genesis chapter 9 and then Proverbs chapter 1, verses 12 through 14. So I hope you've already read the text, and let's just point out a few things here in Genesis chapter 9. The first thing that I want to point out to you really comes from chapter 9, verse 1, and then it's reiterated again in verse 7. Look at it with me. It says that God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number and fill on the earth." And then in verse 7 it says, "Be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it." Now, if you've read closely, you'll hear here an echo of something that you've already heard earlier in the book of Genesis. And think about that. God has already told Adam and Eve to be fruitful and increase upon the earth and multiply. And now, after God has almost reset creation, think about that for a second, that God created everything good to start with. It went bad because of sin, because of human sinfulness that spread. And now, as God recreates the world after the flood, I mean, think about it. The flood almost wipes the slate clean. He says to Noah and his family, "Do what I told Adam and Eve to do. Be fruitful and increase upon the earth and multiply." God wants human beings to multiply and to spread his glory all over the earth. And so he tells them, "Be fruitful and multiply. Do what I told Adam and Eve to do." Now let's just think about the bigger implications of that for a second. When we think about the Bible, right? This is a big book, very big book. And one of the things that the Bible does over and over is that it refers to itself. It quotes itself. It echoes itself. And that's a very important thing for us to pick up on as we read, how the Bible will tell us what it means. We don't have to guess, but the Bible will interpret itself for us. And so we see here an echo, and we hear echoes all across the Bible. It doesn't matter what book you read, the Bible is constantly going to be referring to itself and helping us to understand what it says. And as you get better at reading in the Bible, you'll notice those things. And as we go through, I'll point out those instances where the Bible is trying to get us to say, "Hey, do you remember back in the beginning of Genesis when I said this?" Or do you remember what the Old Testament says about the New Testament, and those kind of issues? We'll talk about those as they come up. Next thing to notice very quickly is this idea of God making a covenant with Noah. Now, a covenant is like a special contract, but it's more than a contract. It's this idea that God willingly, not because of anything we've done, not because of somehow we're great, but he willingly enters into a covenant relationship with us and really binds himself to us. He says to Noah, "I'm never going to kill all living things by a flood again." And he makes that covenant. The sign of the covenant's the rainbow in the sky. He says, "I'm going to remember you. I'm going to have mercy on you. I'm going to make my covenant with you." And as we continue through the book of Genesis and through the rest of the Bible, this idea of covenant is very important, that God willingly enters into a relationship with us, not because of something that we deserve, but by his grace. So eventually, this idea of covenant even is going to come in the Lord's Supper, where Jesus says, "This is my blood. This is the new covenant of my blood." And that idea of covenant is God binding himself to us by his love and grace and being faithful even when we're faithless. This story in verses 18 through 29 of Ham and Shem and Japheth and the three brothers, and how Ham dishonored his father, that reminds us of the importance of honoring our father and just the fact that Ham disregarded his father's honor. He didn't care what his father thought. He was someone who, made fun and looked at his father's nakedness, it says, and didn't cover him. The other two honor him, and therefore they receive a blessing. And I think that's a good transition as we go to Proverbs chapter 1, verses 12 through 14. The author here, Solomon, talks about how sin can be enticing. And it says that sin and sinful people will try to entice you. And when I think of enticing, I think of like fajitas before they come to your table. You can hear them, right? At El Charo, at Applebee's, or whatever, wherever you get fajitas, they like sizzle before they come out. Like makes you want it, gives you like just this, I want those fajitas. And so it's enticing you. And sometimes sin is like that, right? Sometimes sin looks good. Sometimes you know it'll taste good. You know it'll feel good. You know it smells good. It seems enticing, but look at what it says. It says, my son, if sinners entice you, don't give in to them. And be reminded, it says in verses 12 through 14, be reminded that those things that sinners say and the things that sin likes to use to entice us, they aren't true. In the end, sin, it does not deliver on its promises. And so as we walk through life and we face temptation, we need to constantly remember, as we're tempted to sin, remember that sin is a lie, and we cannot fall prey to its temptation. I hope you enjoy your snow day. I hope you have a good rest of the week. I will remind you, we will not have HSM tonight. Anytime that there's a snow day, that means that Awana and HSM is canceled. So I will see you guys Sunday morning. Also, take this chance to catch up on your Bible reading. You can look on Facebook. The Bible reading document is on there, so you can find it. I'll post this video. Hope you have a good day, and I hope your Bible reading is going well. I'll see you tomorrow.